one of the coolest stories about that whole thing, when you said you're all in, let me explain to you how all in we were. The property that we currently have, we made an offer on it in 2005. I was going to buy it and start the business. Well, they came back and said, no, it's not enough money. By the way, Cracker Barrel's going to buy it. I mean, you've been there many times. You're a great client. That porch is 100 feet wide and 10 feet deep. And I remember walking out on that porch like, man, I hope Cracker Barrel does build here. I love me some Cracker Barrel, you know. So 3 years later, things were quite different. The economy was tanking, the whole thing. And we came back, and everybody in my life was like, that's your property, that's your property. I'm like, we already tried. Let's go try again. So we contacted them, offered them less money, and said, we want to do this. So one of the coolest God stories of my life right here. So you know Sean Rogers. Mm-hmm. All right. Sean was the vice president of small business banking. Now he's a pastor and the athletic director at Spartanburg Christian and teaching, and he's just so involved. So great friend, a lot of mission trips. Your parents went on some of those with us. I called him and I said, look, these guys want to close on this property by the end of February. I mean, this is February, the shortest month of the year. We got to close on a commercial property. Is it even possible? Because I'm going to be out a lot of money. Because the guy was like, look, we'll do it, but you got to close by the end of this month, and if you don't make it, you're done. Okay. And Sean said, well, look, barring a Love Canal, which I wouldn't expect you to know Love Canal, but it's an old business story where they had tainted soil and the property was worthless kind of thing. He said, we'll take an environmental study and make sure that's clear. I think we can do it. So did all the paperwork. Man, let's roll. And I'm traveling, you know. And I was actually back in town. And
Still working for
the other company. Honoring their time, by the way. I had my own laptop, my own cell phone. I tried to honor everything I did with them, you know, through that. So he calls me at 4:30 on February the 28th, and he says, dude, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? How is that possible? I mean, we're pre-approved. Everything's done. He said, man, so-and-so went on vacation. I swear this pile of paper sat for about a week. He said, I cannot get this done in 30 minutes. And I said, I want everybody on the phone. I mean, everybody. We had lawyers in Columbia, brokers. There was probably 8 or 9 people. And there's email evidence of this as well, but not to mention the physical evidence of people who were there. And we get everybody on the phone. And I said, listen. And the Holy Spirit said, shut up. I mean, he knows me really well. You know, Craig, peace, be still is not really going to work for me. He said, shut up. Wow. And I just shut up, man. What was that pause? 3 seconds. I just shut up. Now, you know, in business, the old saying is he who speaks first loses, right? So you make your presentation and you shut up. But I sat there, man, and I just sat there. I didn't know what to say or what to do. I just sat there, and everybody's like, and the broker speaks up, and he says, you're out of time. And this came out of my mouth. I said, no, I am not. He said, yes, you are. And I said, this is a leap year. That came out of my mouth.
Whoa.
And my frown turned upside down. I had never thought about leap year in my life, ever. Never knew anybody born on leap year. Never thought about leap year. Bro, we signed a contract that said it had to be done by the end of February, not February 28th. And I mean, he actually, you know, he was just like, I'll be dang. He said, you got one more day. And man, I hung up that phone, and I just couldn't believe it, man. I just started shouting, and I was actually out at my car at work, and I just called my wife, and I said, if you want to hear a story. So I didn't make another phone call, and Sean called me at 4:30 on February the 29th with an end of February deadline and said, everything's done. And I said, if you don't think we're not supposed to move forward, how do you, I just call that like Acts chapter 14,672,467,000, you know? I mean, he's always concerned, he's always working, and we just have to be obedient enough to do it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And to even that moment you You worked in the natural, you prayed, you set the goals, you did all the things right. But it was, even with that, what I'm thinking is like, you were still needing God even at that last moment of like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh, I've done all the right things. I've been obedient. I've prayed. I've followed the Spirit's voice. But now I'm like, there's still that last leg where I'm like reaching, you know? And I think sometimes you just, you know, there's moments where I think on a small scale where I've felt like there's little things on a platter and it's like, here it is. But you still have to pick it up. You still have to take the risk. You still have to, you know, and I think on those, it's like, it's one of those you can't afford to do it, but you can't afford not to do it moments.
That's right.
You know?
And especially, I mean, I've heard people say this, God shows up where he's going to be glorified. He's going to show up where he knows that he's going to receive the glory. In that particular moment, there was no other way that was going to happen. I wouldn't have read the contract. End of February, the whole thing was just like hey, you guys watch this. This is pretty cool right here. Yeah. This is about to go down, you know. And then you take it a step further. We closed on the property. Here we are, you know, doing all this stuff. There's Dalton again there. And they're working like dogs. I mean, we're working them, all that free labor we could get from those kids, right? We're cutting trees and doing stuff. And he's out in the yard. And, you know, he's a lot more practical than I am. And he said, Dad, are we going to be good? I mean, are you going to quit your job? Mm-hmm. I was like, well, yeah, man, I am. I mean, about a month after we open, I'm going to resign, you know, and I've got to, son. We're all in here. And he's like, well, I mean, you got a good job. I mean, we have a good life, you know? And he said, I mean, could we lose our house? And I said, oh, actually, we could. I mean, I said, we've invested a lot into this. And he just goes, well, Dad, and I saw him spinning out of control, and I just grabbed him, and I could still look down at him then almost, you know. And he said, and I said, son, it's okay. I said, we're already successful. And he said, how can we be successful? We haven't even opened yet. Yeah. And I said, because success in the kingdom is defined by obedience. Mm-hmm. And I said, and we're just doing what we've been obediently told to do. And that's it. The results are up to him. This business may fail, but I promise you, man, we will land on our feet and we will do whatever we have to do to get where we need to be. Mm-hmm. And he still recalls that conversation, and it was one that really spoke faith into my life as well.
With the digital world, everyone is on the rat wheel trying to climb their way to the top. As a photographer, I found myself at shoots trying to create content for Instagram stories. It's sad to say, but I was more focused on the stories than I was on my actual shooting. This kind of sparked me to go down the road of saying, how does a person engage on social media while still being willing to prioritize their health and growth as a person and an organization? This is a tough question to answer, but if social media changes tomorrow, where will your business actually be?